Okay, here we go, another quick adventure. I'm going to pot up this Chinese bird plum. I had it sitting on that crate. It was growing right here on that same crate next to my trident maple bed. And of course I had to come in here and weed and such, so I moved it over here and ensured that it was getting plenty of sunshine. It's leafing out pretty well, and like I said, we're going to pot it up. Hey, hope everybody's having a good day today. Sorry about the sun. At any rate, we're going to go over here by my big greenhouse, and we're going to try to get this thing all set up. While I'm doing this, just as a note, most of my trees I grow right here in my yard, including this Chinese sweet plum, Sageretia Theezans, and you can see how large that is. Lots of dead wood, and it grew on the fence line, and I took it up out of the ground on a Valentine's Day, and that was part of the fence, so that's a heart if you could see it. This wood is unstable, so I will try to secure it with glue and cement. If it doesn't work, oh well, my little heart will be lost. But anyway, it'll still be my Valentine's Day bonsai. I've already prepared my soil. So I've got plenty of soil. I've prepared the pot. That's a MICA pot, and it is about, I think this is a 27-inch pot here. Pardon me, a 24-inch pot. Back to what I was saying, I grow most of my plants. You can possibly see the Procumbiums nana on the ground there. Most of those I grew from cuttings, and over there is my bed, and I've got Procumbium starters over there, which I'm going to pot up in the next few days, and there's Sageretia starters. Also, there are crepe myrtle that I've got in the ground. That's just a cutting. And then in the tubs, those are cuttings also. And I guess you can say they're probably 4, 5, 6 inches in diameter. At any rate, I'm going to set this camera up and try to get us started on this potting. And I never know exactly what this is going to look like. Let's see. Let me try that. Well, hopefully that'll work. And if the wind doesn't blow it over, we'll get a video. I've actually grown a big trident maple in this for a few years, just like this, to settle it down, and I've got it in a Chinese bonsai pot, and that's a 27-inch pot. So anyway, I hope this works. I'm not sure about that angle. Wood from trees that I cut, that's a crepe myrtle, but I treat it, either burn it with fire, bleach it, or fungicide. But for something this large, I'm not going to waste my time piddling around with a little bitty chopstick. This is heavy duty, industrial size work. You need a big piece of tool. And right now I'm exposing the surface roots and any dead wood that I might have to That's ground cover fabric that I use for lining the bottom of that. See the roots here. Very nice, fine roots, not super heavy. I guess I wanted to remember what this was. The original plant here is still over on that side of the yard. I bought it from a bonsai broker out of California back in the late 80s. And yeah, late 80s, early 90s I bought that. And just like most of my plants, I set a sample out in different locations around, so I'll always have some. And this is one of the examples of an offshoot from that original plant. And like I said, the original plant is much larger than this. And I take air layers off of it, different sizes. I take cuttings also. And it keeps me busy. Very nice roots here. Now this is the part where I tease the roots out. When you tease the roots, be careful, because if they don't like the way you're teasing them, they may get angry. So I'm really trying to expose this nabari because it is very nice and it needs to be seen. There's a little habitat inside of here. There are weeds growing in that, and all sorts of leaves in there. And like I said, I was making sure there was no live creatures in there first. And all of this soil will be recycled. I'll use it as my general growing medium. So I'll add material to it. I'll sift it to get the gross stuff out of it. Yeah, this is my viewing site. So two different mixes. This has more organic, and this is more inorganic, but it has organic material in it also. I've already got a layer of this for my drainage and aeration, and I'll put this in because it holds a little moisture, and for me that allows my plant to acclimate to all of this that I'm doing right now. And this soil has to go down and back underneath. So whatever doesn't fall straight down, I'm trying to push it back underneath. That's probably 4 gallons of soil I just put in there. And I've got a long way to go yet. As I press this into the soil, I don't just jab it like that. I press it in and I allow my tool to slip in my hand if I feel resistance. So I'm being forceful enough, but I'm allowing it to slip if I feel the resistance, which is a root. And I don't want to break any more roots. And I press side to side to spread the soil, and then what's on top falls into the gap and fills the void. Like right here, you see how that springs? Well, that springs back and forth. There's little soil under there to support the roots. And that's why I'm pushing down and under. So that's a flat end, and that's pointed end. And I can do that also when I find a void. This is pretty stable in this area, but this is still pretty loose. before, I'll add moss to the feature. With the moss, I'd have to put some organic material down so that the moss will adhere. And for the time being, my soil level is actually higher than it will be in the final, well, as the plant matures. Because what I want to do now is make sure I have a good coverage for any roots that are near the surface. I don't want it to dehydrate. Well, that's pretty much it for right now. Like I said, branch selection will happen a little later on. I didn't damage the roots severely because they were nice and spread out pretty much. The few that I did cut, I believe won't affect the vigor of this plant as it's coming out into activity for the spring anyway. So I'll get it watered in. I've got a bin over here and a tray there and another tray, and I've already added B1 to the water to help against shock, and it'll also give the plant a nice start, and I'll let it just do what it's going to do for a little while, and then I'll go back and start working on the dead areas, dead wood areas. Several years ago, I went in and scraped and cleaned down to the natural wood, and most of it is taken on its own. Again, unlike this part that fell. And what I may do with this is just take it, preserve this, and set it up as my accent to go along with this plant, because of what I went through to get it. It wasn't my fence, so I didn't care about cutting it. It was my neighbor's fence. Oh, that's not a good neighbor, is it? Well, I patched the fence up. How's that? Anyway, I'll preserve that, and it'll go along with this as an accent. And depending on how I look at this in the long run, I'll reduce some of this, or it'll just stay like this. I'm just a backyard bonsai guy, enjoying what I'm doing. No worries, no pressures, no contracts to fill. So this is it. Enjoy. I'll give you a closer look. That was a different plant that had been engulfed by that. I think it was a crepe myrtle, because it's still there, nice and preserved. But that's an awesome trunk, lots of movement in it. I wish this camera had a light on it to be able to see in the crevices of that tree. And this is going up the trunk. You can see the dead wood. And it curves around and continues up to the top. So I'll lime sulfur that in the ensuing days and back down to the trunk as we go around. Very nice movement. How about that? You can see the movement in that as the tree grew. And it just grew over itself. And there's a piece of fence. There's a tiny piece sticking out on that end. But you can see how it engulfed that fence. There are a number of branches, offshoots that could actually be air layered off of this and turned into a nice little planting. But this is pretty much how I dug it. Minus the dead wood work I've done on it, and some cutting back of really long top branches. But again, for me, a bonsai is just the way I present it, pretty much the way it comes naturally to me, with, you know, a little manipulation, of course, but I don't adhere to first branch, second branch, laid out pad, especially when I don't see a tree growing like that in nature. Now, there's something to be said for that, because I'll tell you, a nicely done bonsai is a beautiful thing, you know, in that respect of laying out branches right, left, up, down, no crossing branches. All of that I understand, but again, I'm doing this in a naturalistic way. And I say naturalistic because there ain't nothing natural about this thing being in a pot like this. But I'm trying to preserve the random habit of this bush and to make it look somewhat coherent as it's growing. And that's where I derive my pleasure in maintaining bonsai. So there are certain basic things that you have to do to maintain a bonsai. You got to water it. It suits your plant if you fertilize it, if you control pests and heat, sunlight, including cold. If you manage those things, fine, but you got to water it. You can go a long time without fertilizer. If it rains, the plant's going to get nitrogen from the air. If you got natural soil in it, you're bound to pick up some trace minerals, especially if it's something processed. By the time they process it and get everything squared away, they've added chemicals to it, fertilizers, micronutrients and such. So a lot of that's going to be taken care of. But you got to water your plant, and that'll keep it alive, and then you can go from that point. This has some work to be done. I can see, looking at it, that there are branches that really cross and go back against everything that's pretty much going that direction to the right. And I'll take care of that in time. But again, it's just the effort of potting up this pretty large Sageretia Theezans, Chinese sweet plum, or Some people call it Chinese bird plum, or bird plum, or sweet plum. But I call it mine. All right. Have a good day.